Leviticus 14. God spoke to Moses. There are the instructions for the infected person at the time of his cleansing. First, bring him to the priest. The priest will take him outside the camp and make an examination. If the infected person has been healed of the serious skin disease, the priest will order 2 live green birds, some cedar wood, scarlet thread, and hyssop to be brought for the one to be cleansed. The priest will order him to kill one of the birds over fresh water in the clay pot. The priest will then take the live bird with the cedar wood, the scarlet thread, and hyssop, and dip them in the blood of the dead bird over fresh water, and then sprinkle the person being cleansed from the serious skin disease 7 times and pronounce him clean. Finally, he will release the live bird in the open field. The cleaned person, after washing his clothes, shaving off all his hair, and bathing with water, is clean. Afterward, he may again enter the camp, but he has to leave aside his tent for 7 days. On the 7th day, he must shave off all his hair from his head, beard, eyebrows, all of it. He then must wash his clothes and bath all over with water. He'll be clean. The next day, the 8th day, he will bring 2 rams without defect and the yearling all with defect, along with roughly 6 quarters of fine flour mixed with oil. The priest who pronounced him clean will place him and the materials for his offerings in the presence of God at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest will take one of the lambs and present it and the pint of oil as a compensation offering, and lift them up as a wave offering before God. He will slaughter the lamb in the place where the absolution offering and the whole burnt offering are slaughtered in the holy place, because like the absolution offering, the compensation offering belong to the priest. It is most holy. The priest will now take some of the blood of the compensation offering and put it on the right earlobe of the man being cleaned, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Following that, he will take some oil and pour it into the palm of his left hand, and then with the finger of his right hand sprinkle oil 7 times before God. The priest will put some of the remaining oil on the right earlobe of the one being cleaned. On the thumb of his right hand and on the big toe of his right foot, placing it on top of the blood of the compensation offering. He will put the rest of the oil on the head of the man being cleaned and make atonement for him before God. Finally, the priest will sacrifice the absolution offering and make atonement for the one to be cleansed for his uncleansed. Slaughter the whole burnt offering and offer it with the grain offering on the altar. He has made the atonement for him, he is clean. If he is poor and cannot afford these offerings, he will bring one male lamb as a compensation offering to be offered as a wave offering to make atonement for him, and with it a couple of quarts of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, a pint of oil, and 2 doves of pigeons, which he can afford, one for an absolution offering and the other for a whole burnt offering. On the 8th day he will bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting before the presence of God. The priest will take the lamb for the compensation offering together with the pint of oil and wave them before God as a wave offering. He will slaughter the ram for the compensation offering. Take some of its blood and put it on the robe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of his right hand and on the big toe of his right foot. The priest will pour some of the oil into the palm of his left hand, and with his right finger sprinkle some of the oil from his palm 7 times before God. He'll put some of the oil that is in his palm on the same places. He put the blood of the compensation offering on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on thumb of his right hand and on the big toe of his right foot. The priest will take what is left of the oil in his palm and put it on the head of the one to be cleaned, making atonement for him before God. At the rest, he will sacrifice the doves of pigeon which are within his means, one as an absolution offering, and the other as a whole burnt offering along with the grain offering. Following this procedure, the priest will make atonement for the one to be cleansed before God. These are the instructions to be followed for anyone who has a serious skin disease and cannot afford the regular offerings for his cleansing. God spoke to Moses and Aaron, "When you enter the land of Canaan, which I am giving to you as a possession, and I put a serious fungus in a house in the land of your possessions, the household is to go and tell the priest, I have some kind of fungus in my house. The priest is to order the house vacated until he can come to examine the fungus, so that nothing in the house is declared unclean. When the priest comes and examines the house, if the fungus on the walls of the house has greenish or rusty swelling that appears to go deeper than the surface of the wall, the priest is to work out the door and shut the house up for 7 days. On the 7th day, he is to come back and conduct another examination. If the fungus has spread in the walls of the house, he is to order that the stones affected by the fungus be torn out and thrown in a garbage dump outside the city. He is to make sure the entire inside of the house is scraped and the plaster that is removed be taken away to the garbage dump outside the city. Then he is to replace the stones and replaster the house. If the fungus breaks out again in the house, after the stones have been torn out and the house has been scrapped and plastered, the priest is to come and conduct an examination. If the fungus has spread is a malignant fungus, the house is unclean, the house has to be demolished. Its stones, wood, and plaster are to be removed to the garbage dump outside the city. Anyone who enters the house while it is closed up is unclean until evening. Anyone who sleeps or eats in the house must wash his clothes. But if when the priest comes to conduct his examination, he finds that the fungus has not spread after the house has been plastered, the priest is to declare that the house is clean. The fungus is cured. He then is to purify the house by taking to birds some cedar wood, scarlet thread, and hyssop. He will slaughter one bird of fresh water in a clay pot. Then he will take the cedar wood, the hyssop, and scarlet thread, and the living bird, dip them in the blood of the killed bird and the fresh water, and sprinkle the house 7 times, cleansing the house with the blood of the bird, the fresh water, the living bird, the cedar wood, and hyssop, and the scarlet thread. Rest of all, he will let the living bird loose outside the city in the open field. He has made atonement for the house. The house is clean. These are the procedures to be followed for every kind of serious skin disease or itch, for mildew or fungus on clothing or in a house, and for a swelling or blister or shiny spot, in order to determine when it is unclean clean and when it is clean. These are the procedures regarding infectious skin disease and mildew and fungus. Leviticus 15, Laws about liquid body waste. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Speak to the Israelites. Tell them, suppose liquid waste is flowing out of man's body. That liquid is not clean. It does not matter whether it continues to flow out of his body or is blocked. It'll make him unclean. Here is how his liquid body waste will make him unclean. Any bed of the man who has the flour of liquid body waste lies on will be unclean. Anything he sit on will be unclean. Anyone who touches the man's bed must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose something sits on something the man sat on, then they must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose someone touches the man who has the flour of liquid body waste, then they must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose someone is clean, and suppose the man who has the flour of liquid waste spread on them, then they must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Everything the man sits on when he is riding will be unclean. Suppose someone touches any of the things that were under him, then they will be unclean until evening. Even if they pick up those things, they must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose the man who has the liquid flour touches someone. Suppose he does it without rinsing his hands with water. Then the person he touched must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose the man touched a clay pot. Then the pot must be broken. Any wooden thing he touches must be rinsed with water. Suppose the man has been healed from his liquid flour, then he must wait 7 days. He must wash his clothes. He must take a bath in fresh water. After that he will be clean. On the 8th day he must get 2 doves or 2 young pigeons. He must come to the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. There he must give the bird to the priest. The priest must sacrifice them. One is for a sin offering, the other is for a burnt offering. In that way, the priest will pay for the man's sin in the sight of the Lord. He'll do it because the man had a liquid flour. Suppose the semen flows from a man's body, then he must wash his whole body with water. He'll be unclean until evening. Suppose clothes or leather have semen on them, they must be washed with water. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose the man sleeps with a woman, and suppose the semen flows from his body and touches both of them, then they must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose the woman is having her regular monthly period, then for 7 days she will be unclean. Anyone who touches her will be unclean until evening. Anything she lies on during her period will be unclean. Anything she sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches her bed must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Anyone who touches anything she sits on must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. It does not matter whether it was her bed or anything she was sitting on. If anyone touches it, they will be unclean until evening. Suppose a man sleep with that woman. The supposed blood from her monthly period touches him. Then he will be unclean for 7 days. Any bed he lies on will be unclean. Suppose blood flows from a woman's body for many days, and it happens at a time other than her monthly period, or blood keeps flowing after her period is over, then she will be unclean as long as the blood continues to flow. She will be unclean just as she is during the day of the period. Any bed she lies on while her blood continues to flow will be unclean. It is the same as it is when she is having her period. Anything she sits on will be unclean. If anyone touches those things, they will be unclean. They must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose the woman has been healed from her flow of blood, then she must wait 7 days. After that, she will be clean. On the 8th day, she must get 2 doves or 2 young pigeons. She must bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest must sacrifice them. One is for a sin offering, the other is for a burnt offering. In the way, he will pay for her sin in the sight of the Lord. He will do it because a flow of blood made her unclean. You must keep the Israelites away from things that make them unclean. Then they will not die for being unclean, and they will not die for making the place unclean where I, the Lord, live. It is in the middle of the camp. These are the rules for a man who has liquid waste flowing out of his body. They apply to a man made unclean by semen that flows from his body. They apply to a woman having her monthly period. They apply to a man or a woman who has a liquid flow, and they apply to a man who sleeps with a woman who is unclean. Leviticus 16, the day when sin is paid for. The Lord spoke to Moses after 2 of Aaron's sons had died. They were the sons who died when they came near the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to your brother Aaron. Tell him not to come into the most holy room just any time he wants to. Tell him not to come behind the curtain in front of the cover of the ark. The cover is the place where sin is paid for. If he comes behind the curtain, he will die. That is because I peer in the crowd over the cover. Aaron must not enter the area of the most holy room without bringing a sacrifice. He must bring a young bull for a sin offering. He must also bring a ram for a burnt offering. He must put on the sacred inner robe made out of linen. He must wear linen underwear next to his body. He must tie the linen belt around him, and he must put the linen turban on his head. Those are sacred clothes, so he must take a bath before he puts them on. The community of Israel must give him 2 male goats and a ram. The goats are for a sin offering. The ram is for a burnt offering. Aaron must offer the bull for his offering. It will pay for his own sin and the sin of his whole family. Then he must take the 2 goats and bring them to me at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He must cast lots for the 2 goats. One lot is for me, the other is for the goat that carried the people's sins away. Aaron must bring the goat chosen for me by lot. He must sacrifice it for a sin offering, but the goat chosen by the other lot must remain alive. First, it must be brought in to me to pay for people's sins. Then it must be sent into the desert as a goat that carries the people's sins away. Aaron must bring the bull for his offering. It'll pay for his own sin and the sin of his whole family. He must kill the bull for his offering. He must take a shallow cup full of burning coals from the altar in my sight. He must get 2 handfuls of incense completely grouped up. The incense must smell sweet. He must take a cup and the incense behind the curtain. He must put the incense on the fire in my sight. The smoke from the incense will hide the cover of the ark where the tablet of the covenant law are kept. The cover is the place where sin is paid for. Aaron must burn the incense so that he will not die. He must dip his finger in the bull's blood. He must sprinkle it on the front of the cover of the ark. He must sprinkle some in front of the cover. He must do it 7 times. Then Aaron must kill the goat for the sin offering for the people. He must take his blood behind the curtain. There he must do the same thing with it as he did with the bull's blood. He must sprinkle it on the cover of the ark. He must also sprinkle some in front of it. That is how he will make the most holy room pure. He must do it because the Israelites are not clean. They have not obeyed me. They have also committed other sins. Aaron must do the same for the tent of meeting because it stands in the middle of the camp, and the camp is unclean. Aaron will go into the most holy room to pay for the people's sin. While Aaron is there, no one may be in the tent of meeting. No one may enter the tent until Aaron comes out. He will not come out until he has paid for his own sin and sin of his whole family. He will not come out until he has also paid for the sin of the whole community of Israel. Then he will come out to the altar for burnt offerings. It is in front of the tent where the ark of the Lord is. He will make the altar pure and clean. He will take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat blood. Then he will put the blood on all the horns that stick out from the upper four corners of the altar. He will sprinkle some of the blood on it with his finger 7 times. He will do it to make the altar pure. He will do it to set it apart for the Israelites. They are unclean. Aaron will finish make the most holy room pure and clean. He will finish making the tent of meeting and the altar pure. Then he will bring out the live goat. He must place both of hands on its head. While he had that, he must tell me about all the sins that Israelites have committed. He must tell me about all their evil acts and times they did not obey me. In that way, he puts their sins on the goat's head. Then he will send the goat away into the desert. The goat will led away by a man appointed to do it. The goat will carry all their sins on itself to a place where there are no people, and the man will set the goat free in the desert. Then Aaron must go into the tent of meeting. He must take off the linen clothes he put on before he entered the most holy room. He must leave them there. He must take a bath in the holy area, and he must put on his regular clothes. Then he will come out and sacrifice the burnt offering for himself. He will also sacrifice the burnt offering for the people. They will pay for his own sin and the people's sins. He will also burn the fat of the sin offering on the altar. The man who set free the goat that carries the people's sins away must wash his clothes. He must take a bath. After that, he can come back into the camp. The bull and the goat for the sin offerings must be taken outside the camp. Their blood was brought into the most holy room. It paid for sin. the hide, meats, and guts of the animals must be burned up. The man who burns them must wash his clothes. He must take a bath. After that, he can come back into the camp. Here is a law for you that will last for all the time to come. On the 10th day of the 7th month, you must not eat anything. You must not do any work. It does not matter whether you are Israelite or outsider. On that day, your sin will be paid for. You will be made pure and clean. You will be clean from all your sins in my sight. That day is a Sabbath for you. You must rest on it. You must not eating anything on that day. This is the law that will last for all times to come. The high priest must pay for sin. He must making everything pure and clean. He has been anointed and prepared to become the next high priest after his father. He must put on the sacred clothes that are made out of linen. He must make a most holy room, the tent of meeting, and the altar pure, and he must pay for the sin of the priest and all the members of the community. Here is a law for you that will last for all time to come. Once a year you must pay for all the sin of the Israelites. So it was done just as the Lord commanded Moses. Leviticus 17. Do not eat meat with blood in it. The Lord said to Moses, speak to Aaron and his sons. Speak to all the Israelites. Tell them, here's what the Lord has commanded. He has said, suppose someone sacrificed an ox, a ram, or a goat. They sacrifice it in the camp or outside of it. They do it instead of bringing the animal to the entrance to the tent of meeting. They sacrifice it instead of giving it as an offering to me in front of my holy tent. Then they will be thought of as guilty of spilling blood. Because they have done that, they must be separated from their people. The Israelites are not making sacrifice in the open field, but they must bring their sacrifice to the priest. They must bring them to me at the entrance of the tent of meeting. There they must sacrifice them as a friendship offerings. The priest must splash the blood against my altar. It is the altar at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He must burn the fat. Its smell will please me. The Israelites must stop offering any of their sacrifice to statues of God that look like gods. When they offer sacrifice to those set statues, they are not faithful to me. This is a law for them that will last for all time to come. Tell them, suppose someone offers a burnt offering or sacrifice. It does not matter whether they are an Israelite or an outsider. And suppose they do not bring it to the entrance to the tent of meeting to sacrifice it to me, then they must be separated from their people. Suppose someone eats meat that still has blood in it. It does not matter whether they are an Israelite or an outsider. I will turn against them if they eat it. I will separate them from their people. The life of each creature is in its blood. So I have given you to the blood of animal to pay for your sin on the altar. Blood is life. That is why blood pays for your sin. So I say that the Israelites, you must not eat meat that still has blood in it, and an outsider who lives among you must not eat it either. Suppose any of you hunts any animal or bird that can be eaten. It does not matter whether you are an Israelite or an outsider. You must let the blood flow out of the animal or bird. You must cover the blood with dirt. That is because every creature life is its blood. And that is why I have said to the Israelites, you must not eat any creature's meat that still has blood in it. Every creature's life is its blood. Anyone who eats that kind of meat must be separated from the community of Israel. Suppose someone eats anything found dead or torn apart by wild animal. It does not matter whether they are Israelites or an outsider. They must wash their clothes. They must take a bath. They will be unclean until evening. After that they will be clean. But suppose they do not wash their clothes, and suppose they do not take a bath, then they will be held responsible for what they have done. Leviticus 18. Do not commit sexual sins. The Lord spoke to Moses. He said, speak to the Israelites. Tell them, I am the Lord your God. Do not do what the people of Egypt do. You used to live there, and do not do what the people of Canaan do. I am bringing you into their land. Do not follow their practices. Obey my laws. Be careful to follow my rules. I am the Lord your God. Keep my rules and laws. The one who obeys them will benefit from living by them. I am the Lord. Do not have sex with any of your close relatives. I am the Lord. Do not bring shame on your father by having sex with your mother. Do not have sex with her. She is your mother. Do not have sex with any other wife of your father. That would bring shame on your father. Do not have sex with your sister. It does not matter whether she is your father's daughter or your mother's daughter. It does not matter whether she was born in the same home as you were or somewhere else. Do not have sex with your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter. that would bring shame on you. Do not have sex with your daughters of your father's wife. She was born to your father. She's your sister. Do not have sex with your father's sister. She is a close relative on your father's side. Do not have sex with your mother's sister. She is a close relative on your mother's side. Do not bring shame on your father's brother by having sex with his wife. She's your aunt. Do not have sex with your daughter-in-law. She's your son's wife. Do not have sex with her. Do not have sex with your brother's wife. That will bring shame on your brother. Do not have sex with both a woman and her daughter. Do not have sex with either her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter. They are close relatives on her side. Having sex with them is an evil thing. Do not take your wife's sister as another wife and have sex with her. Do not do it while your wife is still living. Do not have sex with a woman during her monthly period. She is unclean at the time. Do not have sex with your neighbor's wife. That would make you unclean. Do not hand over any of your children to be sacrificed to the god Molech. That would be treating my names as if it were not holy. I am the Lord your God. Do not have sex with a man as you would have sex with a woman. I hate that. Do not have sex with an animal. I do not make yourself unclean by doing that. A woman must not offer herself to an animal to have sex with it. That is wrong use of sex. Do not make yourselves unclean in any of these ways. That is how other nations became unclean. So I'm going to drive those nations out of the land to make room for you. Even their land was not clean. So I punished it because of its sin. The land itself drew out the people who lived there. But you must keep my laws and my laws. You must not do any of the things I hate. It does not matter whether you are Israelites or outsiders. All these things were done by the people who lived in the land before you. That is how the land becomes unclean. If you make the land unclean, it will throw you out. It will get rid of you just as it got rid of the nations there before you. Suppose you do any of the things I hate, then you must be separated from your people. Do exactly what I require. When you arrive in Canaan, do not follow any of the practice of each people. I hate the things they do. Do not make yourselves unclean by doing them. I am the Lord your God.